think that one of the best ways to learn how to do something is to watch somebody else do it who's been doing it for a long time. I've been dealing with anxiety for my entire life. And so today I want to show you one of the ways that I cope with it. So I'm going to walk you through my entire thought process that I'm experiencing right now out loud to show you what this looks like on the inside for me. I am having a lot of anxiety today. And before I tell you why, I'm going to tell you why I'm starting where I'm starting. One of the strategies I use is always let your anxiety go first. So I think of it as kind of like a debate, right? You want to let your anxiety basically lay all its cards on the table and give you every single reason why it thinks you should feel the way you feel, rather than letting it make one point and try to counter that point. Because once you see everything, at first it's going to look terrible. When you hear everything I'm up against today, at first you're going to think, oh my gosh, he's screwed. But you'll see where this goes at the end. It's going to be intimidating and terrifying when you see every single point your anxiety has, but you need everything out in the open in order to start to be able to formulate your response. So, why am I anxious today? Well, that building behind me that you can just barely see has been my place of employment for the last just over 7 years. And when I walk out of it today, it will be for the last time as an employee anyway. So that's the longest job I've ever had by far. This is the most occupational and financial stability I've ever had in my entire life, and I'm about to leave it all behind. So already, that's a pretty big deal, right? It gets so much worse, friends. I'm not leaving this job for another job. I don't have another job lined up. I mean, I kind of do, but it's not a job. I am leaving this job to work for me. I'm starting my own practice next week, so I have no salary, no guaranteed income, no contract, no 401k. Every single thing I do is 100% dependent on my actions. My whole finances all come down to me and what I do. There is no safety net. There's nothing in place to prevent me from failing. It's all me. It gets worse. I'll keep this part brief because I don't want to air all my personal business on here. But we are a single income family of 4 with a disabled child. So my entire family's financial present and future is all on this business that I'm starting. It's all on me, not just my life, everybody's life. Only 2 out of 4 of us currently have any earning potential. One might always have a limited, at least, earning potential to some point. So finances are very important to our family, and the sole responsibility of those rests upon this endeavor that I'm about to undertake. So in other words, to summarize my anxiety's argument, I'm about to do something really dangerous, and if I screw it up, it could ruin my entire family's life. And one other point that my anxiety is trying to make right now is that I've never done this before. I've not started a therapy practice before. So I am taking this risk, this leap of faith, with basically no evidence to suggest I can do it. And those are pretty much my anxiety's points or arguments. So when I look at all of that with no response, with no counter argument, it looks really bad, right? I mean, it probably sounds like I'm about to do something really stupid. And there's a part of me that wants to panic and call the whole thing off and go in that building and say, guys, I made a mistake. Let's renegotiate my contract. I don't want to do this anymore. But that's not what I'm going to do. And I'm going to tell you why now. So here comes the counter argument part. So the first thing I want to address is this, if I don't fail, then all this is fine, right? So why do I think I'm going to fail? Well, businesses fail all the time, right? So again, I'm just going to say my thoughts out loud. Okay, do you know anyone who has started a business? Yes, I know many people who have started a business. Do you know, of those people you know, which is probably, 7, 8 people, do you know anyone whose business has failed? Yes, I know one person whose business has failed. Okay, so already 1 out of 7 or 8 people, fairly low ratio of people you know personally. That one person, who was that person? Because you gotta make your anxiety define and articulate things. It tends to speak in very broad generalities, like businesses fail all the time. Well, define all the time. What's the of people what's the actual frequency? And then next, of the people whose business has failed, was there a reason maybe? So that one person whose business failed, was there anything specific or unique about that person that might have been the reason that that business did not succeed? Well, first of all, it was in the food industry and mine's in healthcare. So completely different industries. That person also had a pretty significant alcohol problem, which I think was probably the main reason his business did not succeed. Do I have a significant alcohol problem? No, I do not. So my characteristics and personality traits and skill set seem more in line with the people I know whose startup businesses have succeeded. So already an important point, right? What we're trying to do here is establish plausibility, okay? Because your anxiety will just take the worst case scenario, but it'll take the worst case scenario that's like semi-plausible. You know, really like the worst case scenario is like overnight I turn into a lizard person and eat everybody that I love. But is that plausible? I don't think it is. Is it? I don't know why that was my example. Hopefully I did not just unlock a new fear for all of you. I told you this was going to be live and on the fly, so you don't know what you're going to get from me today. Is it plausible that my business would just completely and utterly fail? Based on what I just said, I don't necessarily think that it is. I think that those statistics of people I know and who they were and what they were doing suggest a fairly strong likelihood that my business will succeed. Okay, so, or at least not fail, because succeed and fail are two extremes, right? What if it's somewhere in the middle? What if it goes all right, but like not great? Again, this is 100% of my family's income. So what happens in that situation? Because that would, what if I make half as much money as I think I might? That's not necessarily failure per se, but it's not good either, right? Well, is this my only source of income? No, actually, it's not, because recently I have gotten a decent amount of income from things like AdSense on YouTube, listens to the podcast, super thanks and memberships from you guys. Book sales have been up lately, so I have an entire second source of income. Now, that's not enough to cover all of my family's expenses, but it helps a lot. And in fact, I'm even going to go so far as to say, if it were not for you guys supporting me through all of those channels that I just named, I don't know that I would have done this. This was actually a big part of my decision-making process, is knowing I actually have some other sets of income, some streams of revenue that are fairly well established and fairly consistent. And so even if this business at least gets off to a slow start, even if it never becomes what I hope it will be or what I dream it could be, I still have other income coming in. And I think that at the end of the day, we will be okay, even if it's slower than what I thought. So I guess on that, I'm kind of interrupting myself a little bit here, but I just really want to say thank you to you guys. You are part of the reason I'm doing this. And once I get the new business up and running, I'll give you guys a little office tour and show you what you have helped me accomplish. But anyway, back to talking myself down from the anxiety. So second counterpoint that my logical, my wise mind, as you might say, has is, even if this isn't what you're hoping it will be, you guys will probably still be okay. I mean, really, this would have to be a catastrophic financial failure for it to not work out to the extent where you have to like not do it anymore and go back to working for somebody else at some point. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere, right? What about this idea that you have no experience, that you've never done this before? Seems true on the surface. I've never... I just mentioned some independent business ventures that I have started. I have self-published a book. I have self-created some social media content that do produce revenue. So those are businesses. Now, they don't involve being credentialed with insurance panels or signing, leases on offices or anything like that. So they're definitely different types of businesses. But they are businesses. They are businesses that were entirely on me. Okay, so how are they going? They're going really well. I mean, as I just mentioned, I'm able to partially support my family from those revenue streams alone. They're growing rapidly. People are responding well to them. So, I don't have any direct evidence to say, yes, I can go open my own office, and be my own boss and hire people. I haven't done those exact things before. But the things I have done that are most similar to those things are going really well. So the available evidence that I have actually probably points towards like, maybe you can do this though. You've done things kind of like this and they're working out pretty well. Also, it feels like tomorrow or today is the big day, because today is the day I officially, end my employment with my current employer. So it feels like this is when the shift happens, right? Like this is when it gets real. But then if I really look at my life for the past few weeks, it already has gotten real. I mean, so many of the things I have to do to have a business and start it up, I've done most of them already. And there have been challenges. Yesterday, when I walked into the office, the new office for the second time, there was no heat. It was freezing cold. The first time I got to my new office with a truckload of furniture, the door was supposed to be unlocked and it was locked. And I had to call someone to unlock the door for me. Deliveries have come early and I've had to change my schedule dramatically to accommodate that. Things have taken longer than expected. Things have been more expensive than expected. This office wasn't even the office I initially wanted. It was my second choice. My first choice did not pan out. So really, it feels like this starts, tonight or tomorrow morning, but this started like 2 months ago. I've already been doing this. And again, okay, so how have you been doing? You've faced all these challenges. How have you handled them? I think well. I think I've handled them well, because every single one of them is either fixed or on the way to being fixed. Things are not quite on the timeline that I hoped they would be, but I've heard that that's always the case when you open a business, that everything takes twice as long as you think it's going to. And B, I also know I'm a chronic underestimator of timelines anyway, and I always think I can do things faster than I really can. So none of that is really surprising. I know myself, and I just know this is how I operate. Therefore, I know that's not something to really panic about. So those essentially are all of my counter arguments. Now, one thing you might have noticed about all those counter arguments is that they weren't really counter arguments, at least not at first. What most of those started as were questions. Questions I asked myself about the things my anxiety says to me, to assess the validity of the positions my anxiety takes. That's why you want to let your anxiety go first. You need to know all of its positions so that you know what questions to ask to potentially dismantle those positions. When you ask them as questions rather than state them as statements, it makes it a little bit easier for you to fully think of the counter argument. When you try to disprove your anxiety, ultimately you won't be able to completely disprove your anxiety. It's logically usually impossible to disprove something. So having said all that, do I feel 100% confident that this won't fail? No, I don't. Again, that's not realistic. That will not happen. And if that's my barometer for where I need to be at, I'll never reach it. I won't feel that way. I'll probably feel 100% sure that this business is going to succeed about 5 years after I start it, realistically. It's going to take a while for me to reach that level of confidence. So I cannot expect myself to have that level of confidence today. I would be delusional if I had that level of confidence. So the absence of that level of confidence does not suggest anything other than I'm probably in my right state of mind for thinking this is a big, scary thing I'm about to do. But asking it as questions helps you explore the counter arguments to anxiety in a more genuine, curious fashion. Because what you're typically going to find is that your anxiety doesn't hold up real well to these types of specific questions. Questions like, they're almost like lawyer type questions. Is it true that you have no experience doing anything like this? Not really. Partially, but not entirely. Is it true that most businesses fail? I don't know. I don't actually have global statistics on that, but the anecdotal data I have suggests no, it's not. Most businesses don't fail, and the ones that do, maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe that reason doesn't apply to me. So how do I feel right now? What's my confidence level? It's not 100%, but after having said all that, 85, 90, it's high. I feel good. I feel mostly confident that this endeavor is going to succeed now that I have talked myself through the entire process. When I first pulled up here and was thinking about where I was going to start and all the reasons I was anxious, my confidence level was not, I don't know where it was. It was much lower than that. So this is the power of asking questions of the statements that your anxiety makes. Now, it's not always going to result in you having 90% confidence, because not all anxiety is pathological. So that's something that's really important to remember too. Some anxiety is just whoa, this is this big, crazy, stressful thing, and you're not going to be able to talk yourself out of that. And that's probably where the remaining 10 or 15% of my anxiety comes from, is this is genuinely a big deal. It is. and I should feel a little anxious about it. Like if I didn't, something is wrong there. That would actually be a sign that I'm not in my right state of mind. But anyway, that's the final step, is essentially to, you kind of heard both sides. Well, let's summarize now. Where are we at? What do we think about this current situation? Having heard all of that, having asked and answered many, many questions, and kind of getting to the heart of the matter, I think it's probably going to be okay. That's what I think. So anyway, I think I've reached the end of my train of thought for today, so I'm going to end this video so I don't get rambly. I know this was a little bit different than what I usually do, so let me know if this type of video is helpful for you. I probably wouldn't typically record it on my iPhone in my car, but if hearing me work through my own stuff rather than educate you guys on stuff is beneficial, I'm more than happy to do this again. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Take care.